Hello, this is Teacher Ronald. I want to welcome you to this lesson. The previous lesson we looked at writing formal letters. We explained all that is required to write a good formal letter. And for the students, also looked at how particularly your examiners will mark your letter if you are writing it as a student. And therefore, the steps that you will take to write a good formal letter were taken in the previous video. I want to encourage you, if you didn't watch that video, just look for it on my channel, Learn English Language and Literature, or LELL, and you won't miss any other video if you subscribe, like, or comment about any of the videos. Okay, today in this video you will be able to know how to write a good letter to the press or a letter to the editor, but you'll also be able to use the samples that we are going to show in this video to enhance your understanding of formal letters. Enjoy. So we need to understand what formal letters to the press are. Actually, letters to the press are supposed to be formal because you're writing them to the office. It is a letter that is written particularly to the press or to the publishing house. So they are also called letters to the editor particularly. Now, as a reader, after you have read maybe a newspaper, you have read maybe any kind of publication like a magazine, you may have some concerns about one article that may have been published by that publishing house. So you'd want to respond either by correcting or by giving more evidence about what may have been discussed in that article. And it will be your role to explain, and that will be you are writing a letter to the press or to the editor. These letters are, like we have already mentioned, are written for publication, meaning that after you've written your letter, it is going to be published in either that the newspaper or a magazine of that very publication house, or it will be published individually in another form of publication, so long as it is for that very publishing house. Okay, so letters to the press or letters to the editor are sometimes sent through email. Of course, today you're not going to say you're going to be putting transport to move from one place to another to take your handwritten letter to the press. You will be required to type your letter and send it via email based on what that publication house wants. Okay, so we need to be taken through what exactly these letters are meant for. What exactly do these letters handle? What exactly do I have to do as a writer of such a letter? Number one, these letters respond to an article. It can be a story or any other letter of that very editorial that could have been published in a newspaper or a magazine or any other form of publication. So they are written to respond to any of the stories or articles in a particular publication. This letter also aims at providing information that may not be provided in the original publication. If someone has written a letter, for example, or maybe an article, but there is some information that is missing, then you as a reader who feels there's something missing, you need to write a letter to the editor or a letter to the press to explain the information that is missing. It can also be to correct what may have been wrongly published or any form of misinformation or misconception. Now, if someone maybe has published something that you think is wrong, information that is not correct about either particular institution, a particular company, a particular person, or any idea, then you may need to write to correct that information. What you will write to the editor would be what you call a letter to the press or a letter to the editor. It may also be written to support the opinions provided in the original publication with more evidence. So if there is evidence that is not published or is not mentioned in a particular article or a story in the newspaper or a magazine, you may need to write to provide more evidence about that very idea. It is also supposed to be a standard business letter with the appropriate language of newspapers and magazines. So you need to write these letters in the language of journalism in one way or the other, because they, like we mentioned in the first 3 minutes, we said these letters are made for publication, so they will be published and the language has to be that language of journalism. So we're going to look at the samples below and we see what exactly we have to consider as read letters to the press. This was Daily Monitor of Monday, November 25th, 2019. Now, on your newspaper, maybe you have a newspaper that you're going to be reading. This is actually where you find an area of letters. These are letters, and it is always in the corner. On one of the pages of your newspaper, you find this area of letters. It's just called a corner of letters, and you see people have written and have responded to particular issues, or they may have written to provide evidence, just as we have discussed above. So let's go and look at some of the samples, and I will see. We have a sample here that was written. We want to see what this letter, what the content should be, what exactly the language should be. This is NEMA, KCCA, sued. This is the title, or what we could say the reference of that letter of that day. Geoffrey Mugazio says, the story that a concerned citizen has dragged the National Environment Management Authority, NEMA, and the Kampala Capital City Authority, KCCA, to court for allegedly failing to stop the reclamation of the Kasanga Buga Soya wetland is interesting and ironical at the same time. This is because both KCCA and NEMA are mandated to protect the environment, including wetlands. Therefore, for the two agencies to be sued, moreover by an individual, over failure to reclaim a wetland shows how ineffective they have become. This is what someone wrote to the editor, and this is what that person. Another one. Sodomy suspect. That was the reference of the title, or the topic of the title. Ronaldo Luanga says, the story that police have arrested a teacher for allegedly sodomizing a 5-year-old boy, a pupil at King Fahad Islamic Primary School in the Busega, Wakiso district, offers some relief but leaves me at a loss. I believe that we all as humans have fallen short of God's glory over one thing or another. However, never has it ever crossed my mind that a man, and a teacher at that, can turn on a boy of 5 years of age and sodomize him. Before I make sense of this, I will have to first visit a psychologist to explain to me what could lead a teacher of all men to commit such a crime. So these are some of the articles that I picked from an area like this one of letters, and I wanted to show you where exactly letters are found, or letters to the press are found when you are reading your newspaper. Now the questions are going to be, is this how a letter should be written if you're writing it to the press? Actually no. We looked at letters, formal letters, or letters that are official, and they are supposed to be written in that way. We're going to look at a sample and we shall see what happens. Just like I mentioned, these two were picked from Daily Monitor. So let us have a guiding question here. You're a member of the public. On Monday, 20th May 2018, you read in the Daily Monitor an article written by Kok Alat Nyalong entitled, South Sudan Rebels Must Be Shot Dead in Public. Write a letter to the editor, P.O. Box 5634, Kampala, clearly explaining your opinion. So a question can come like this in your exams, and you have to first of all understand, what am I supposed to write about? You're going to write expressing your opinion about the topic that someone had written in Daily Monitor of this day, and the topic is South Sudan rebels must be shot dead in public, meaning this person offers his or her idea about what they think should be done to the rebels of South Sudan. So after understanding this, you write expressing your own opinion. Yes, even when you're doing an exam, you need to be very careful. Underline the key areas of concern in your question. We have underlined the date when the publication was taken. We have also underlined the major topic of discussion in that article. We have also underlined what we are going to do. We're not going to argue, we're just going to give our opinion. So, just like we mentioned before, letters to the press are supposed to use a language of journalism. But also you need to understand which article you are responding to. So the article you're responding to is actually written by Kok Alat Nyalong and is with this title. After understanding that, we go on and see what letter can we write. Just stay tuned. Let us see in the samples. Okay, so we have a sample that looks like this. I think I need to just change and I see. Okay, I think now it can be seen better. This is what you have to do when you're writing a letter to the press. We say this is also a formal letter, so we have to follow all the formats of a formal letter. To begin with, we have the addresser's address or the writer's address. We said it's supposed to be indented, and this is why we have this here. And then your date has to come just on the line, just here. It has to be on the straight line, just like in the first line of your first item on the address. Then the comma should be here, and we say that the line which ends with a country or a city should end with a full stop. That's why we have a full stop here. Then your date, we said you can skip a line. That's why we have this line skipped. This was in the previous video anyway. Then we have the date. That's the format you use, right? Remember, when you're writing it to the press, you're writing to the editor. So you have to address all your letters to the press, to the editor. So you say the editor, then you put the publication, and then you move down. So this is the format. It is as formal as we do in formal letters. Our major purpose shouldn't be looking at the format. Let us now look at the content and the language that we use. Okay, this is the response to Kok Alat Nyalong's article. I write for the reason as in the reference above. The article of Kok Alat Nyalong of Monday 20th May 2018 entitled South Sudan Rebels Must Be Shot Dead in Public is a disaster itself. It is deadlier than those rebels. So when you check here, you see that this person in the introduction begins by directly talking about what they are going to do. They are writing to talk about the article, and that article, the title has to be put in the very first paragraph of your letter. In this article, Kok Alat Nyalong explains the origin of the war in South Sudan, a point I understand and respect. This people's war is not just political, as he explains. So this person begins by first of all opposing what is in the article of Kok Alat Nyalong. There are tribal issues meddled in there. Their war has just started, but it has been and it is a disaster to the East African community, and above all, most of the citizens of this country have grown even more apathetic about life, valuing it no more. So this person also gives us at least some background about the war and what it has done to the people of South Sudan. This means that the person, before you write to the editor, you should have some background information about the topic you're going to respond to. Okay, and hence flowing more violence even in the would-be stable communities of the country itself. Okay, he therefore gives this his own rather illogical opinion that the African Union should be involved, hunt for all these rebels and have them executed in public. This is where my argument comes in. This solution is so personal, unrealistic, and rather impressionistic. It has both short and long-term devastating effects. To begin with, the root cause of the war will not have been solved. So this person now begins to give solutions to analyzing exactly what the other article is talking about, picking some of the ideas of the person who wrote the original publication, and then begins to critically look at them. And we're going to see that this person has to give their own opinion at the end. Okay, the tribal part of the cause remains buried. 2. Only the current government will benefit as its enemies will be vanished, meaning that Once the opposition government comes in, revenge will take place on the outgoing government. Another very important aspect to examine is how he proposes the execution should be done. How does he think the children will be saved from this nasty image? So, opposing what the other article was talking about is this, that we cannot have the rebels executed because children are not saved from that. They are going to see that and it's devastating to their side. My suggestion is, now this is where the person begins giving their solutions. First of all, opposing what the article was saying, and then they begin giving their own solutions. My suggestion is that involvement of the African Union should be to bring them to the round table. Dialogue is the way to go. This is a modern world. You can never solve violence with violence. The current government should be led to accept sharing power, and the rebels too must be convinced that solidarity is the way to develop their country. We must solve issues away from guns. Development of the African countries is based on the fact that their people are there and not dead. We must all condemn what Kok, Alat, Nyalong thinks is right, and then this person signs out the letter. So this is what we refer to as a sample letter to the press. When they are publishing your letter, they are not going to put this address because you are going to just be mentioned that this is the person who sent in the letter. They won't also put this. It is not necessary. They won't also put this. They only pick the topic of the article. For example, if they are publishing this, they will just say response to Kok Alat Nyalongo's article. Then they will say, for example, the person who writes this is Nambuya Shania. So they will say Nambuya Shania says, and it will begin from here. They will come and end here. So the rest of the things are just the format. They will not publish your format because, of course, you will consume the space. Okay. Now, in examinations, you don't have to leave out the format because the format actually carries a lot of marks. For you, when you're writing for examinations, this is what you should do. Even when you're writing to the editor, this is what you should do. For them, they're the ones who to pick what is necessary and they put in the publication where we saw the area of letters. I hope this was good. Okay. So we're going to continue, and in case you have any questions, I want to encourage all of you to always comment on the videos and we shall be able to answer all the questions that you post on or about any video. Okay. So if you're enjoying this video, I want to encourage you to just subscribe to my channel and will not miss any video that we post in here. The following thing we're going to look at is actually going to be another type of letters of request. Just like we promised in the first 2 seconds of this video, we said we're going to look at 2 letters to the editor or to the press, and then letters of request or requisition letters. Just stay tuned as we come back with this. Okay, letters of request. These are also called requisition letters. These are letters that are written with the aim of asking for or seeking help or support from either someone, a group of people, or an office or an organization. So this help can be in very many ways. It can be financial help, it can be an advice, it can be material help, it can be a service to be provided, it can be a request to have facilitation or any other kind of if there is any need of either a service, a material, any need for advice, whatever. It could be financial, it can be material, and any other form of help that is needed. Then you can write a letter of request. Now, you may have heard either your teacher or a prefect or any person, especially an officer, talking about the need for some help, either to facilitate an event or a service. It could be at school. You have maybe a betters program that you need help for. Then the teacher may have talked of asking for this kind of help from an office that is at a higher level, maybe from the head teacher or from the director or even from the district, depending on what the gravity of the need. Now, the question is, have you ever asked yourself a question, what exactly this teacher is going to do? Have you ever asked yourself, does the teacher have to go and speak to the person? Does it have to be written? Of course, they always have to write. Those finances, if at all it is financial, coming from somewhere, and they have to record. Okay, so the records will have to be determined, and therefore the person has to write a letter, and that's what we call a letter of request or a requisition letter. Requisition letters can be formal, but they can also be informal. If you're going to write a letter of request to your aunt, you're requesting your aunt to supplement maybe your pocket money, you're not going to write a formal letter. That's going to be an informal letter. So we cannot have an application letter, for example, that is informal, but we can have a requisition letter that is formal. Now, what does it need you as a student to have a good one? Now, what matters is actually you looking at who you are writing this letter to. Once you understand the person you're writing the letter to, you'll be able to write the right format. You know, for example, they've asked you to write a letter as a class monitress, asking for more dusters in your class, and you're writing this letter to your, maybe the deputy, maybe you're writing to your class teacher. You're not going to write an informal letter or a personal letter. You're going to write a formal letter. So that's what the difference is going to be. It will be in who is your addressee, or who you are writing to, who is your audience. Okay, in case you are asking for this help in formal letters, please, you have to be formal enough and be polite, because you cannot expect to get help if you are impolite and harsh. So you have to be humble enough. That is one of the skills that letters actually have to teach us. We learn to be polite, to speak in an appropriate way. Okay, so also when you're writing letters to someone requesting for something, you have to also be elaborate on what kind of help you need. If you want money, be clear and say, I want financial help of this amount of dollars or this amount of shillings. And by doing that, the person will quickly have to respond knowing what they want. But if you just say, I want some help, they won't be able to know what exact help you need. So it is very important for you to, first of all, elaboratively talk about the exact help you want. If the help is, for example, providing for you with a service, you have to also be clear about which service that you want. Okay, let's look at a sample and maybe we shall understand it better as we look at the question. Now, today our question is longer. You are the chairperson of Writers Club of your school. Okay, so meaning they want me to write as a chairperson, I underline that, but a chairperson of what? Of Writers Club. Okay, there is an inter-school writing competition in 2 weeks time, and you need to practice for perfection. So you are going to practice, that is writing, as you prepare for the inter-school writing competition. Okay, there are some materials you need. Okay, so they want us to get some materials. Okay, materials you need to buy for the same purpose. Write a letter to the head teacher. Okay, so I'm going to write to the head teacher, not to my mother, but you're going to write it through. So in this video, actually, we'll also be able to learn how you write a letter through. So you are going to be very lucky, actually. Now, in this case, you have underlined all the areas that you're going to consider as you write your letter. The question is, how do I write through? Just stay tuned. We're going to look at a sample until you give us a clear image of what to do. Okay, so we have a sample of our requisition letter here. When you look at it, it is still formal enough, because remember they said we're going to write this letter to the head teacher. So it has to be a formal letter. This is okay. The format is clear. This one is also okay. Where do I put through? This is where our through comes in. So don't write a complete word through. You have to write this in capital letters. TH U to represent through. And that is now, we're going to write our letter, but we'll be having 3 addresses. Some people always ask, when do we have 3 addresses in a letter? This is actually the area. So this is your address. This is the address of the person the letter is going to. That is your head teacher. And then through, you're going to write it through your patron of Writers Club. So the title, the address of the patron or the person writing through should be here, and then they will recommend and will take it to the head teacher. This is also still about the format. You've seen how the through is used. Okay, let's come here. That is, we need facilitation for practices. Okay, on behalf of Writers Club, I hereby humbly request your office to provide the team that is going to participate in the inter-school writing competitions with the following necessities for better preparation for the event due to take place on the 2 weeks time. Okay, so here we have our writer beginning by telling us what exactly they want, stipulating what they want. They want the following materials. So we keep tuned and we see what materials they need. The committee sat and agreed that the following items with their possible market prices are required for that very cause. So if you just outline the items and then you forget these market prices, it will be very hard for the person also to know how much you need. So because the help that you need is going to be material but in form of money, we need to also stipulate what exact amount you need from the audience that you're writing this letter to. Okay, so when you continue, they have to stipulate exactly what item and how much money they anticipate to cost. Then in total, they also give us the amount here. Now, the conclusion is what we want to look at particularly. In case of any discussion needed to make this information clearer, I am ready to come to your office for it. It will be of great pleasure if my request meets your consideration. Now, you cannot write this on letters to the press because they're not going to ask you to go to the publication house and then you want to explain matters. No, you can say this is a unique way of concluding your letters of request. So what does it therefore require you to do? 1, you need to write this letter through. If at all you're writing as a chairperson and there is someone that you have to include in that reference, and this is how you do it. And then 2, you have to be elaborate on what kind of help you need for the person that you're going to address to understand how they can help you. Okay, if at all you enjoyed this video, please I encourage you to subscribe to my channel and you won't miss any video. Like, share with any other student, with any other person who may need these resources. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. I love you.